Field Marshal Karappa used to say is Pehla Hamesha Pehla, first and always first.
Yeah.
And that is one of our guiding roles and guiding issues which take the battalion forward. The casualties which our division had in the Babunia sector, I don't think we got the benefit and got the izzat which a dead soldier demand. Army is one of the finest example of a very good strength which India has today is Army. It's very secular, our credential, the core value of the Army and as a nation is secularism.
What is the best thing about the armed forces?
Is bonding. Even today, we see to it that our war widows join us whenever we have our get-together, whenever they may be.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another special episode of Fauji Days. Today, we are fortunate to have with us Lieutenant General HRS Mann, PVSM, AVSM. He is an alumni of the RIMC Dehradun, and in commissioning, he was posted to the 4th Battalion Brigade of Guards, which is formerly known as the 1st Rajput. And since then, he has served with distinction in all operational theatres. In fact, he has commanded a brigade and a div in Jammu and Kashmir and a corps in the Eastern Command. Welcome, sir. Thank you for joining us and thank you for inviting us to your beautiful farm.
Yeah, it's a welcome. Come anytime and any number of times.
Thank you, sir. So you have been a colonel of the Brigade of Guards, and that happens to be one of the most elite army regiments that we have, and it's also the first mixed class regiment that we have. So can you tell us more about the Brigade of Guards?
See, the Brigade of Guards were then Field Marshal Karappa converted the first senior-most infantry regiments to Brigade of the Guards. And thereafter, they remained infantry battalion, the role of infantry battalion, and at some stage, they were mechanized. And basically, it essentially is infantry regiment, and now they are totally mechanized. So the role is, as Field Marshal Karappa used to say, is Pehla Hamesha Pehla, first and always first.
Yeah.
And that is one of our guiding roles and guiding issues which take the battalion forward.
So you just told us that the Brigade of Guards is a mechanized infantry. So what is the distinction between mechanized infantry and infantry?
It's essentially the mechanization. It is the platform provided for the infantry battalion for roles along with armor as well as in close quarter battles. But basically, it is the platform, technology-wise, they have a platform to now move forward, which is the armed personal carriers. And they get upgraded every time. So it depends on that. But they are now mechanized, means they are not footing it to start with.
Not on foot.
Not on foot. They go along with armor. They are in collaboration with armor. And for armor, mobile warfare, they play a very important and a fixed role.
I understand.
And yet, they are capable of carrying out dismounted operations as well. So they are both. They are trained that way to carry out dismounted operations as well as mounted operations.
Okay. Wonderful, sir. And sir, you have two unique threes to your name, and I'll start with the first one. And the first one being that you have the privilege of commanding 3 Republic Day parades, and they were all under 3 different prime ministers. So what was that experience like of commanding a Republic Day?
No, it's a very good experience, and one learns to stand off, and one learns, and you find there are pressures. And at one stage or at all the stages, you want to always ensure that your formation and your army doesn't become a doormat to be misused for whatever be the thing. You have to be very careful and stick on to the parades, stick on to the schedule and the way it is. And it is definitely a very learning experience, definitely. And you also take care of the battalions. The contingents come from all over Indian Army. They congregate about 3 months earlier.
Yes.
So that you get to know them and you drill them together and eventually produce a parade which hopefully should be good and the people should like.
So what about the camaraderie between these soldiers?
Yes. The people there is a spirit of camaraderie, and as well as people, they do what they are supposed to do. Essentially, they are told that this is what it is. And they are all conscious of the fact that the whole nation may be watching them doing the parade.
During the parade, absolutely. So, you have the other unique fact about you is that you are probably one of the only generals to have served as the chief of staff of 3 different commands. So, the Western Command, twice the Central Command, and training. And that it's a very unique fact to have. So, how was your experience serving as the COS, and what is the role of the COS?
It is basically there was a extension given thereafter. Because of the extension given right across the board, there was no vacancies available. So people like me who are younger comparatively, because we did senior Cambridge before coming to the army and not college. So therefore we were given these slots for there. And I find it a very fine experience to be chief of staff to very fine commanders, army commanders were there. Very friendly, and they were very close to seniority as well.
Yes.
So it was a very fine experience to be with them. And the role is basically to ensure that the command functions smoothly, and the army commander is given the time to do what he should be doing, and not getting him involved with the day-to-day routines. That's one of the essential part, I think. And is to hold on, to guard and make the people soften up. Don't let them see the rough edges of the army. My job is to also soft pedal those things, and yet ensure that the basics are retained, basics are maintained, and at no stage do people take advantage of it. Whatever it be, an army commander is free to do other things, like to command and to go around, to visit, to see the essentials of what he wishes, to maintain those activities. And he will have all the time, provided I do my job.
Yes. So any special anecdotes that you remember from your time as a COS?
There were so many of them, small anecdotes, the way they are. And we have a very versatile army with terrific young officers and senior officers who come out with things along the line. And I do remember one man, I saw one officer dressed up like nothing on earth. And I said, which bloody army are you from? And he says, I'll give you 2 guesses, sir. so you find, these are the fellows. And mind you, he picked up his next rank. The aim was not to be B-minded, but the humor is an essential part of our army, because we undergo lots and lots of pressures. And therefore, unless the senior man or senior lot don't have sense of humor and ability to laugh, then you find there's too much of pressure down below. This is it.
Wonderful, sir. So, going from a humorous to a slightly serious topic, you served, you were part of the operations in Sri Lanka as a part of the Indian peacekeeping force, and we lost a lot of brave soldiers during that time. So, can you tell us more about your experience there and what really happened in Sri Lanka?
See where we were. I was with the 4th Infantry Division, and located in Babunia is the place. Jaffna, which is one part of Sri Lanka, that's more intellectual center, Brahminical intellectual center. Then come Trincomalee, which is like a situation of ethnic divide was there in terms of the Muslims. They were Tamils, they were Telugus, Sinhalas. So you find easier, but the difficult fight was in the jungle, which was Babunia. That was the center of jungle fighting. And all the very high-grade day-to-day fighting was done. It was in Babunia. Because you find that that's where jungles were, that was the area was underdeveloped, and that's where the fighting takes place. And the difficult part was, if the man dropped his rifle, then you couldn't touch him, because it's then you don't know he was enemy or not an enemy. Like any difficult warfare, any insurgency, this is the problem. The enemy is not very well defined the way it is. But in Sri Lanka, I think it was a very strong, and it was essentially a very thick jungle warfare battles being fought by the battalions and this. And I find many of our battalions who didn't violate the basics did extremely well. And what you taught them in your schools and colleges and your promotion cadres in the battalion, if they followed the basics, they came out scot-free. But if they didn't, tendency was to take it easy after some time. That's where we bought casualties. And unfortunately, the casualties which our division had in Babunia sector, I don't think we got the benefit and got the izzat which a dead soldier demands, which we had. comparatively speaking. And when we also used to come down to, it's a difficult war naturally, when we used to come down to Madras, the tendency was that locals felt that you are killing their boys. So to that extent, that bonhomie and that it is our army, at times I found it was missing. But otherwise, yes, people knew that we were there for a role. The role was given by the country and we were doing it.
So in general, do you feel we are doing enough to honor the memory of the soldiers that we lose?
Yes, I personally find we should do little more. We are not done enough. There are enough memorials being made, enough wreath layings are being done. We are remembering every battle. But I feel Sri Lanka, the blood which was shed was as much red as anybody else's or in any other battle. So we should still do a little more than what we are doing at the moment. And fortunately, many of us are still alive, including the GOC IPKF, General Kalkat, he's in Delhi. So we should still be able to, create a situation where we remember those soldiers. Because the bloodshed was there as much an Indian blood than anybody else. And lethality of the bullets were as bad as in any other battle. So why this has got little downgraded, I'm not too sure. If at all. This is my perception. Maybe other people don't feel it is downgraded.
No, so, but you're absolutely right that we have to at least honor their memory,
Yes,
because you said a very nice dialogue that their blood is as Indian as anybody else.
Exactly, and as red. So that way, certainly.
Absolutely.
There's a definite need for it. And we should institutionalize it and not leave it to the commanders who are there and then when they say something about it. But we should institutionalize it like any other martyr memorial or remembering them.
So you were just speaking about battle and losing brave soldiers. So even in Kupwara, where you were the div commander, over there also you lost 14 brave soldiers. So today the modern soldier is different from how we perceive a soldier during your time, probably simply because they have different educational backgrounds. They are more aware about society nowadays. How do you feel soldiering has evolved and what sort of an impact does it have today?
Kupwara was again a center of insurgency. And it was the northern part of Kashmir, where lethality of the activity was very, very severe. And that is the time when we found that media was not allowed to interfere because it's the governor's rule, I think. So therefore, that gave us little more freedom. But yet, we lost people there. And very often, I thought, many times we were losing people when we violated the basics of the teaching which you always insist on. Some people, after you have been there for 2 years or 3 years, continuously, 2 years tenure, you tend to take it easy. If nothing has happened, tendency is to take it easy or take shortcuts. It is this tendency which I think at times resulted in buying of casualties. But otherwise, the troops were, when they knew that this was to be done, it was a very fine performance by battalions, particularly infantry and paratroopers who were there in Kupwara. And but yet this is a very active area for all operations, insurgency, that side. And the problem was little more, there's certain amount of, they like it or not, subversion of the people. There were policemen were there were other people working for the government, some school teachers. But I found there was certain amount of subversion, whereas our intelligence was leaked out many times by the people, comparatively. But otherwise, people didn't know what to do. After all, they are being harassed by the militants as well, and then army also would harass them, if at all. We are very conscious of it, extremely conscious that it must not be counterproductive. Our operations must not be counterproductive. We lose friends, and having friends was a very essential part of it. And there are people, all said and done. So that was, people might misuse it or misquote it, but generally it's not the case. One is at least definitely the battalion commanders and other officers and all are conscious of the fact that they are our people, and we can't be foolhardy and trigger happy. It's not the thing. It may be misquoted or sometimes exaggerated.
Right, sir. And so speaking of how soldiering has changed, there's also a lot of technological revolution that's happening. And I was speaking to a few soldiers that I met during the military lit fest that happened in Chandigarh, and they had displayed a lot of the weapons over there. And they all said that, training has undergone a lot of change because there are new weapons, new things being produced. And technology is definitely playing a key role in the way we now fight. So what do you have to say about how technology is impacting?
You are right. There is a change in the educational standard of the other ranks. Technology has come in. There is computer savvy people are there. But after having said all this, I personally find that the technology very relevant. It must be added on to the army. But at some stage, it should not be at the cost of the human resources. The soldiers must be kept in mind. But the finest example you can get of technology has a place, but up to a point. Is Afghanistan, बहुत पहले white name था, and the Chinese went in to teach white name a lesson, but who learned which lesson? That only Chinese know. But in Afghanistan, you find the Russians were there, then came the Americans. There was no dearth of technology or high-grade technology. But end of the day, you can't replace a foot soldier. You find that all Taliban with his pagdi and a bandolier and a Peshawari chappal and the salwar moving around the way it is with the grandson on his fingertips. You find that technology cannot replace this man's motivation, this man's what he feels for the cause why he is there. Similarly, our army also must not. Technology cannot overtake our human resources development. We must be fully
they have to work
aware
together,
of it.
essentially.
That after all, as one remembers that if the value system also has to be there, value system can't change simply because technology has come in. We have a technology has come in. The mobile telephone has a value system. The families change. Sad is the day with the family's value system also changes because there's mobile telephone with everybody. So similarly, I think in the army, technology, though, and this hasn't changed or must not change the value system. It's like Izzat. I always think of it. The definition of Izzat hasn't changed because this technology has come in. The definition of imandari hasn't changed. Imandari, I'm not talking about financial imandari. That you get to know and you'll be caught. But imandari at the highest level, mental when I'm not being watched, we definitely, you find Wafadari is another one. The system. They must not change because technology has come in. The officers must be strong enough to ensure. And one of the reasons that an officer can ensure this is personal example. Personal example was very relevant in Lord Krishna's time, very relevant in Guru Gobind Singh's time. It is 10 times more relevant today. And you don't need seminars and you don't need any lecture bazi if your personal example is right. The way you dress up, the way you move around in the battalion, and the way you feel for the value system of the soldiers, the way you feel for them, the way you feel for your company, subunit, your battalion. That's the way. And I think technology mustn't sideline the troops, the physical soldiering, the part of the foot soldiers or the human resources. We must not discard them at cost of technology.
So these values that you speak about...
And you remember there's the last one you're hearing in the papers of that court-martial where the helicopter was shot. Where was the technology? After all, there were the human resources are there. The human element is there. So you cannot discard human element purely because technology has replaced almost everything.
So, and these values that you just mentioned about imandari, izzat, wafadari, do you think these values can be instilled in people, in soldiers and in the public in general?
See, you cannot isolate. Indian Army is a national army. What's happening back home, what's happening in his village, you can't isolate a soldier from what's happening there. Soldier Subhadar Sahab, he has a scooter and explains to me 10 times more to the CEO that he takes a loan and he buys it. Whereas back home, his younger brother may well be a police constable with a car, with a Gen car. His Patwari has a brother is Patwari who has a big car and he's still on a scooter. And now these things are coming up now. People are getting, the quality of life is changing. People's aspirations are changing. But you can't isolate the army from the rest of the nation. So we have to be very careful on that the army should not get really wrongly influenced by whatever be the issues exist in the army, in the rest of the country.
So you have served in the 33 Corps, which is in the eastern sector. So can you tell us some unique incidents or some unique facts about the eastern sector?
No, 33 Corps, the responsibility is on the eastern side with Sikkim and Bhutan on the right. But also it is involved with a certain amount of Bangladesh coming in, and the border and all the borders are porous, except the Chinese border. All other borders are porous. People can come and we can go. I found the difficult thing was people coming every day from Bangladesh, infiltration, and then the way it was. There was no complete account of it. How many people were there? You knew was much more, but the civil administration tended to say it is much less. And yet one had to, one felt that certain amount of strictness is all meant by, one can't say it of course in this way. But the fact is also more relevant is now the role of Bhutan. It's an independent nation, sovereign independent nation. So, and we should avoid trying to behave like elder brothers to Bhutan, because the tendency was at the bureaucratic level or that level that we are the elder brothers, which is not the case. They don't like it. They don't feel happy about it. And it's like Nepal. Nepal is one end of the thing, but it is the fact is it is the independent nation, and we have to give them the credit, and we have to treat them as independent sovereign countries. And otherwise, 33 Corps, the problem also was the flood relief. Flood relief and Ulfa, certain spillover from Assam, they would come this side. And in the long run, I think the role, the word about Siliguri corridor is there. Bhutan, how Bhutan playing the cards with China. Because the way it is, I felt that certain amount of Chinese were still grazing there, and one had to make a lot of noise to get them out. But it is there, but then you find troops are well entrenched there. The number is sufficiently strong, I believe now, as compared to before. And I'm sure it will be the way it is. It is going to get further strengthened the way we go along. But otherwise, the role of this sector as such, Nepal and Bhutan, would be very relevant.
So, and just to conclude and ask you one last question, I'm sure you had a certain aspiration to join the Indian Army and to serve our nation. What message do you have for the youth of today, whether they are defense aspirants or not? What is the message that you would like to share with them?
Well, I do feel they should feel if they don't defend physically or intellectually or mentally the country, who else will? They have to do this tendency of basically, essentially, not forgetting the nation as such. It's very relevant. And we should not be just finding faults. We should be definitely the army people, the retired or otherwise. We should be well above and see things in a more holistic manner and not small segments of Bengal, Bihar, Punjab, and this like that. India is India, and it has to remain the way it is. And army is one of the finest example of a very good strength which India has today is army. It's very secular, our credential, the core value of the army and as a nation is secularism. And you find it was in my battalion when the Subedar Major was Ramzan from Sholapur and JCO was Ajab Singh and Halka Bahadur was a Haldar Major. And there was no such problem whatsoever. So it is the strength of the Indian Army, which is being very secular. You ride above all these small issues and see loyalty to your line yard, loyalty to your uniform that you wear, loyalty to the namak or nishan. So those are very relevant, and people should be part of education, the school boys also. You find some people when they're singing the national anthem in Olympics, there's so much of pride in their face. Whereas we find our chaps are not quite people who are standing there. Everybody joins the national anthem, but very rarely you find our people ever joining
the same pride.
It doesn't happen that way. And this is what army is a very, basic, the core value of a country today is the Indian Army, what it stands for, the way it is, definitely. And we should be strict about it, we should ensure it, and personal examples of people who matter should be there. That you don't need seminar, you don't need anything else to be done, no lecture on leadership. If your एक ही तरीका है काम का, वो है सही तरीका. There is only one way to do things, जो है सही तरीका. चाहे आपने कपड़े पहनने हैं, चाहे आपने खाना खाना है, चाहे आपने पगड़ी पहननी है, और जब आपने सलूट मारना है. You salute well, the whole battalion will salute well. So this is it. Old value system.
Leading by example. Yeah.
So it's like that.
Yeah. Wonderful, sir. So we have a very fun segment now. It's called the rapid fire. So I'm going to ask you some questions and you have to reply in a word or in a sentence, not more than that. So it will be a quick round that we have. So can we start?
Yeah.
Okay. So sir, what is your favorite peacekeeping tenure?
United Nations, Gaza.
And what is your favorite field tenure?
Kupwara.
Wonderful. What's your regimental war cry?
भारत माता की जय, भारत माता की जय, भारत माता की जय. गरुड़ का हूँ बोल प्यारे. गरुड़ is गरुड़. गरुड़ का हूँ बोल प्यारे. 3 times.
Wonderful.
We are talking about भारत माता की जय. अभी हम 1928 से शुरू कर रहे हैं. और लड़ाई में अभी भी करते हैं. Standing in front of me, we do this even in battle. जाने से पहले पता लग जाता सब हाजिर है यहाँ पर. इज्जत की बात है.
So, and what is your favorite dish to eat?
In the army, one was a non-vegetarian. Right now, I'm a vegetarian. Basically, it is. I personally have never been fussy about eating. Never. So I eat whatever.
Any sweet dish that you enjoy the most?
Sweet dish. My mother used to make super kheer. Or it is maybe ice cream or malai barfi.
So, sir, and what is your favorite personal weapon?
I would still go for rifles.
Rifle. Okay. So, what is your favorite war movie or war novel?
Novel, plenty. One I read every day till about an hour and a half at night. As I come, whatever be, I may have a whiskey or whatever be, but I read at night for 1 hour. And the war movie was this, the one we had, Greatest Day of, do you remember? It was in Normandy landing. The very well-made movies.
Wonderful. And sir, who is one soldier that you admire the most?
I admired 3 of my CEOs, not one. 3 of my commanding officers, 4 commanding officers. And I won't name them because they were superb. Ruthless, very strict.
Yeah.
And they all did pick up the next rank. And they were all different from each other. And they were different from each other, yet there were certain non-negotiable fundamental qualities which they all had, but non-negotiable. Very comfortable with troops, very friendly with troops, and very ruthless when it came to work. Therefore, I can't really name one, but I would like to name all 4 or 5 of them. All retired, they became as lieutenant generals, and one as a brigadier.
Great, sir. So, and what is your favorite sport?
I would say ice hockey. I play hockey for academy. From NDA, I played hockey. I ran 400 meters for NDA and my school and IMA. But I still like to play ice hockey or ski.
So, and my last rapid fire question is, what is the best thing about our armed forces?
It's bonding. Even today, we see to it that our war widows join us whenever we have our get-togethers, whenever they may be. अगर जैसलमेर में है तो गवर्नमेंट ओपरा ऊना बदायूं वगैरह भी उनको बुलाते हैं हम. Now the battalion is in Jalandhar, and we still ensure and insist that the bonding is maintained by all concerned. And I visit all the battalions, whoever makes the mistake of calling me. And that is the way I find the mental aging I'm delaying. Somebody asked me, so what are you doing in Hyderabad? And I went to Kurg, where all the Janakirapa, Thamaya, Sumanna, all the Kurg gentlemen, they make very good officers, excellent officers. I was there for 3-4 days. And they said, what are you doing here? I said, I'm just delaying my mental aging. So this was it. And I think the only way to delay mental aging is, आप जाते रहो पलटनों में, जाते रहो जवानों के साथ, जाते रहो उनकी फैमिली में.
Very nice note to end this, sir. Thank you so much
No,
for
thank
speaking
you.
to us and
It's a
being on
pleasure.
Fauji
Thank you.
Days. And your farm is absolutely wonderful, and I'm looking forward to a nice tour. of the
No,
farm.
बिल्कुल be a pleasure. अभी चाय पी लो because हमारे फौज में चाय कभी I didn't drink once. I didn't have water. Man, I was with the CEO. मैं कैसा नहीं रहने दो. He said no. Man has come. पता नहीं किथों लेके आया चाय बना के लाया. वो तेरे मगर आ रहा है. So never refuse tea from the other end. Never refuse water. कहाँ से पता नहीं लेके आए हैं. वो उठा रहे हम तो चले आ रहे हैं. तो वो पता नहीं कहाँ से बना के पहाड़ी के पीछे से लेके आया है. So that part. To have tea with us. उसके बाद.
Thank you, sir.
Friends, our Faujis have been and continue to be the lifeline of our nation. Come hell or high water, they have always been there for us, whether in times of war or natural calamity or any other challenge India has ever faced. And the culture, traditions and history of the Indian military are part of a rich heritage, painstakingly preserved by one and all. To cherish and celebrate this heritage, a unique initiative called Fauji Days has been launched by the budding startup 99 Beagles. So what is Fauji Days? Well, it is primarily an oral history project based on interviews and recordings. Faujis always have tons of stories to relate, many of them inspiring, thought-provoking, funny or engaging, and highly satisfying for the curious, especially young adults in their formative years. These engaging interactions between officers, men and women from our services, with young adults from schools and universities are being captured on camera by us. We want to showcase the diversity of lived experiences on the one hand and the perceptions and expectations on the other. Allow me to also add that the scope of Fauji Days initiative is not limited to just oral history. It also encompasses the written word and the world of military publishing. Already, several books by eminent military authors have been published under this umbrella, and all have been well received by the readers. The Fauji Days website is another crucial resource designed to house the diverse aspects of this project. It features multiple blogs, reference and archival material, and a community newsletter that highlights the progress made as well as the new recordings and books. Feel free to log on and subscribe. I warmly welcome you to be a part of this initiative, no matter what color uniform a Fauji wore, or whether he or she served on terra firma, flew in the air, or rode the waves. The fact remains that each one of these brave hearts is a reservoir of remarkable tales and cherished memories. Fauji Days wants to share these memories and tell these tales to a much wider audience. If a nation is made of memories, then Fauji Days will prove that Fauji men and women have contributed some of the best. As a Fauji, you can reach out to us and tell us about your rich experiences. Get in touch and we will revert with an audiovisual team equipped to capture your recall. Or if you're too distant, we can guide you about how to record and send it to us. Of course, you can also write your tale and send it to us to be featured here. We have the wherewithal to capture you on video from whatever location on the planet. All we want is to know your story so that India knows her story better. It is incomplete without yours. Please also feel free to send your contributions to this archive of India's valor in the form of nostalgic pieces, anecdotes, pictures, or other content you may wish to share with the wider Fauji Day community. On behalf of Team 99 Beagles, I thank you. As they say, Fauji Days never end. In fact, they are just beginning. So, Fauji Days forever. Jai Hind.